This Sunday. Every Sunday. Side by side at the microphone, from the green light to the speed trap, Chris Switzer and Ray Carino calls them as they sees them, and you better believe them. Here! Relevant news, biased opinions, and outright bullshit regarding every aspect of automotive culture. Gas, mechanical trickery never before revealed over FCC-regulated airwaves. Thrill to the explosive tension as Chris and Ray cuss each other down the track and barrel roll across the finish line, laughing at certain disaster as they shake hands with the devil. All that and much more this Sunday at high noon on the Motormouth Radio Hour. Call in and speak live with the Wizards of Speed and live feed, Chris Switzer and Ray Carino. Bring the whole family. Kids under 12 get in free. Every Sunday at noon on WHPC. Take the Long Island Expressway to the Meadowbrook Parkway and look for the sign saying no parking on the expressway and no express service on the parkway. Go right on Highway 24 to Garden City. $2 all-day parking includes pit pass. Sunday!
Oh, I got you. You thought I didn't see you now, didn't you? You tried to sneak by me now, didn't you? Now give me what you promised me. Give it here. Come on. Good God. You promised me the day that you quit your boyfriend, I'd be the next one to ease on me.
And you eased on in to Long Island's only automotive talk show, Motormouth Radio, with your hosts Ray Guarino and Chris Switzer. You haven't tuned into Reservoir Dogs. You've tuned into a car show. Is that right, Chris?
That is Joe Tex, isn't it?
Swing your hips again. Come on. I want to see. Come on.
A little
there
bit
you go.
longer now. Hold it.
Yeah, there you go. That's it. Yeah. Oh, let me tell you, what a way to start a show.
Yeah, you can't sing a song. You can't write a song like that anymore because people get offended.
Yeah.
Yes, men stalking women, right, in popular music. What a surprise. Can't do that anymore.
No.
Not like you could in 1969, but yes.
But what you can do is you can call and talk to us about it at 516-572-7440, where we'll take your calls and complaints and play with all this cool stuff, because that's what we do here on Motormouth Radio. That's just what we do, and we've been doing it for 20 years. And we're gonna.
Yes, we've been trying to do it well. I don't know how. It's pretty much questionable how well we do it.
That's up to contention.
But yeah, we're doing it. We're still doing it. We're still here at this fine establishment doing this. The wonderful talk show at 516-572-7440. Talk about your car needs and dreams.
And we can start off with a call. We can say, yes, caller, you're on with the Motormouths.
On this fine Father's Day. Hello.
Happy Father's Day, you guys.
Happy Father's Day, Tom. Thank you very much.
Hey, Tom.
You guys are wonderful. I wanted to wish you the best. And please send my regards to Joe D. Happy Father's Day if he has children. And you guys are wonderful.
Thank you, Tom. And Joe is too. He's got a couple of kids, and they love him very much. And I'll make sure he's probably hearing you right now. So thank you for that.
Yes. Awesome. And a couple of things. Your music selection's really good. That Funky Town, I'm liking it.
Well, stay tuned to the bottom of the hour, because we follow that up with something else, you know.
All right, listen. You'd really make my Father's Day if you played Baby Got Back.
Oh, geez. I don't know if we... I don't know.
All right. 2 words of wisdom here. Number one, I'm the proud owner of a Honda Sport Hybrid with 350 miles on it. I bought it. I put that many miles. I love it so far.
Oh, very good. Good.
That's awesome. So you bought a hybrid. Yep. Nice.
Yeah.
Good choice.
I love it. Now, I will tell you this, though. I did find out that a Toyota Prius Prime, which is a plug-in vehicle but with a motor, could have been bought at the same price. Had I known it could have been bought at the same price, I would have had a hard decision to make, and I might have went with the Toyota because it has the plug-in capability.
Right.
Okay. Well, that's a good factor in determining which car to buy. Sure.
Right.
Yeah, and just a warning to The dealers down here, the guys with the guns and the razor blades and the, what do you call it, switchblades, the guys down here were trying to get $10,000 over sticker for the Toyota. I won't mention the dealership, okay? But, they're entitled to try what they want. However, a friend of mine bought one in Connecticut for MSRP, and he got it in 2 weeks.
Well, those Connecticut people. Yeah.
So it's just
always giving you a deal. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now, the other word of wisdom, it's a shout out. If any of your listeners want to gain some spiritual insight, Rabbi Pearl on WHPC between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. is very interesting dude. Whatever religion you are, I suggest. And that's what I wanted to share today.
Very good, Tom. Well, thank you for that information.
Good. Have a wonderful Father's Day. Bye, guys.
All right, Tom. So long.
Thanks, Tom. Bye-bye. Have a good Father's Day.
That's right.
Yeah, that's funky town.
Tom was talking about that hybrid a couple weeks ago, and that was...
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm shocked you remembered it. 516-572-7440. How was your week, Ray?
Oh, it was...
Automotively.
It was good. What we're having trouble with today is YouTube again, just so you know.
Oh, good. What else is new? We're always having trouble with them. So we are, as I look up on our little technological dashboard here, I don't see that we are recording.
No, it's live. I tell Zoom to, sign into YouTube Live, and usually the sign-in screen for YouTube would come in, you sign in, and now I get to sign into Zoom. Well, we're on Zoom. That's who's telling me to sign in, so... So I don't know.
Yeah, one thought would be to follow along, and then the other thought would be, wait a minute, you're totally...
Right. Well, talking about following along, we have another caller.
Let's do it.
We'll go to the phones and say, hi, caller, you're on with the Motor Mouths.
Gentlemen, happy Father's Day.
Hey, Bob, thank you.
Robert.
And I want to thank Tom for calling, because you know what that means.
Oh, yeah.
You're going into the garage.
I hear the pull tab now.
Oh, I got a half quart in there. I'm going to pop right now.
Good man. I love when you follow tradition, Bob. That's wonderful.
Oh God, it's just, I tell you, it really makes my day. So, what did he wind up buying?
He bought a Honda, right?
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I can see it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Guys, have a great Father's Day weekend. Once again, great programming, and we'll catch up with you next week.
Thanks, Bob. But next week you won't catch up with us because we're not going to be here next week.
Right, you're traveling south, right?
Chris and I are both traveling south separately in separate cars. This way, if we hit something, we both don't get wiped out. So we go separate directions. We'll go in the same direction, but we're doing it in separate cars.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So you'll hear a best
university. Is that
what's that?
Is that a university trip? Are you guys going to university?
No. This is all just family fun stuff we're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So you'll hear.
I got a feeling between the both of you, one of you coming home with something on a trailer.
Ooh, there's always a good chance.
You never know, right? I guess you never know.
Well, let's put it this way, Bob. There's one of us that may have there's a potential for one of us to come home with something on a trailer, and it would be the other one to try and talk us out of it.
Yeah.
How appropriate if it's not your bride, you know?
Right.
No, they're already not talking to us.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see.
We'll see. We may just come home with pictures. Who knows? You never know. Well, you never know.
Travel safe.
All right, Bob. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
So we should let people know, right? We won't be here next week. We'll put on a repeat show from
best of show
from a year past, from some years past. We'll I don't know how far back we should go. We have the whole archive. We can put in whatever we want, but we'll find something.
Yeah, something from 2004.
Listen, I'll look for 2000. That was the year I started. Yeah. So,
I got a problem with my '78 Chrysler Cordoba. You get those calls.
Yeah, I know. Right. Exactly. Wow.
So it was a monumental week this week with me automotively. I became one with the carburetor, just to let you know.
Oh, yeah. Please tell me about that.
Yes. Oh, let me tell you. Thankfully, there's a lot of information on Holley carburetors.
Ad nauseum.
There really is. YouTube and on Google or whatever, basically on the internet. There's a lot of information, and now I know why. Because they're junk.
Well, I hate
these carburetors are crap.
Yeah, I hate to tell you, you're in a vast minority on that one because
I know
I have no scientific data to prove it, but I know what I know from people and trends, and it is probably the most used carburetor.
Right. This carburetor is a piece of junk.
Maybe you just have a bad one. There are dogs in the bunch.
I could. I've gotten the car. I had the floats set correctly. I mean, to the point where I measured them, took the bowls off on either side of the carburetor, measured the front one and the back one. This is a single pumper.
That's what I want to talk to you about. I want to talk about that specifically. But
I went through that, put them back on, put the carburetor back on the top of the motor, and then I went through it with the sight. With the sight, call it a sight glass.
The sight glasses, yeah. I found those to be marginal at times.
Because you can adjust the jets on the carburetor while the car is running, which is really a nice thing. It's a luxury.
You're adjusting the float level is what you're doing.
The float level,
and even without the sight glass, they used to be the carburetors come with a brass.
That's what I had. These two brass screws.
Okay, so you take that out.
Take them out.
And you just it's like checking rear end fluid. You just want the gas to drill. But the problem is, as the motor shakes and moves, it kind of sloshes gas in the fuel bowl. So.
It does. So you kind of have a
but if you take that out and it squirts, it's not going to squirt out. But if it just flows out, the float is too high.
I've had it far. I've had it both ways. I've had it dribble. I've had it squirt. And I've had it non-existent.
Take the medicine for that. They have a pill, I think. You take. See, I was looking ad nauseum for information for you, and what I found was there was two sets of data. That one was in all the books that I have, and even the Holley manuals, just said to set that float, you invert the float bowl and set it level.
Right.
Which is kind of what I told you last week, to just set it even.
Which I've done.
But I found other references to float levels, but you have to have the sheet from the rebuild kit to provide that. And even I went in because I have sheets. I saved them. And many of them on that carburetor just had dashes where no number given for a wet float adjustment. So then you just do the dry float adjustment, which is level.
Mm-hmm. So that's what I did. But of course, when you do the dry float adjustment, where you just make it level, on the front bowl, there was no gas coming out of it. On the back bowl, it was spewing out.
Okay.
So I had to play with it.
Well, that's the problem you have in fuel coming out of the back side of that carburetor. So.
Well, so what I had to drop that, I basically had to counterclockwise the jet so I can drop the float and get that moderate so it wasn't pouring out the sight hole. And so I had to do that. So basically, this is what I was doing all day yesterday. And I was chasing this acceleration issue, whereupon you would go to pull away, and it would go puh through the carburetor. You get one puh, and then you kept going. Then it would like catch.
Right.
So you'd start to feed gas, it would fall flat on its face, it would bog, puh through the carburetor. Now, mind you, thinking it's lean, right? Of course. So, all right, all the lean. The ways you would rectify a lean condition were to adjust the accelerator pump. So you didn't have a certain amount of play within the linkage of the accelerator pump.
That should be done anyway. But no, you adjust the screws on the side of the bowl to rich in the mixture.
Well, that too. But of course, when you just rich in the mixture, your eyes are tearing at this point, and it's still going through the carburetor as though it's lean.
The accelerator pump.
That's why this carburetor needs to be crushed.
I'll tell you this.
This carburetor needs to be crushed and turned into a paperweight. It's a piece of crap.
All the ones I've done, the accelerator pump is one thing people never pay attention to. And what you need to do is so people know, you open the throttle wide open, and then you measure the gap between the arm on the accelerator pump and the linkage arm. And I think it's like 15,000th, if I'm not correct.
15,000th of an inch. You're
There you
absolutely
go.
right. You are absolutely right.
And there's a screw with a spring on the lever that you use to adjust that. There's
So you need
also
2 wrenches.
there's also a little horseshoe.
Rube Goldberg-esque way of doing these things.
You can't do that at any other carburetor. You know how you do it on a quadrijet? You
got to pull the top of the bowl.
No. You do it on the car. You can either bend the lever.
Yes.
Right. Or a lot of guys would shorten the accelerator. They grind some off the accelerator pump. That's how you do it on a quadrijet. But on a Holley, you have the ability to adjust it, which is cool. No other carburetor has that.
Right.
Except
and
something in the Holley line.
unfortunately, that is the only thing that has been told to me when it comes down to remedying a lean condition, and it doesn't work. So there's something else that's going on in there.
Well,
mind you, I've been taking the carburetor off the car, doing the service while it's off the car, and then putting it back on the car, so I could do a little at a time, because I want to figure out what this problem is. I don't just want to fix it; I want to figure it out.
Okay, that's good. I'll tell you this. Let me give you this pearl of advice, wisdom with Hollies, something I learned a long time ago. You have a power valve in that front float bowl on the front metering block. Okay.
Yes.
If the carburetor backfires once, that power valve is toast. You need to
way!
Oh, yeah, because it blows it out. Now, later, you have an early carburetor. The later ones, what Holley did through the years is they devised like an anti-reversion type power valve metering block setup so it doesn't blow out with a backfire.
How do you know when that power valve is bad?
Power valve gives you enrichment on acceleration.
Right, but how do you know it's bad?
Because you don't have enrichment on acceleration, which is kind of what you're talking about right now.
So you're saying that one
backfire,
and that's all, I ruined it.
You know, the early carburetors, and I don't know. No one's ever said, Holley doesn't say how big of a backfire. I have no idea how big of a backfire it takes or how small of a backfire. But repeated backfires, it blows the power valve. And now that's kind of like an internal accelerator. Read up on the power valve and you'll see what I'm saying.
Well, the reason why I'm asking is I have like 3 of them on my tool bench at this very moment. And what it is it's basically like, it's about the diameter of a quarter. It's about a thickness of maybe like 4 quarters, and it's got a hole in the center of it with a almost like a valve and a weak spring, so you can press on it, and like you say, it allows
the power valve has the diaphragm. And I'll tell you this: when you do change the power valve, there's different gaskets that go. The power valve, there's like a gasket that goes over the back of it when you thread it into the metering block.
Yes.
And there's different gaskets depending on the style of power valve. Some power valves have holes, some have big windows cut out of them, and you need the correct gasket for that particular power valve. Otherwise, it won't work correctly.
Okay, because these power valves are all just the same. There are 3. There's just 3. They're all the same configuration. There's no holes in them. There's a hole in the center of it, obviously.
Look on the back of it. You'll see what I'm talking about. Right where that the shaft with the little spring on it, as that tapes out, that's how the fuel transfers. There's either slots or there's holes.
Okay, because the question I'm having is, how do you know when one is bad if you're holding it in your hand?
Yeah, you know what?
Can you blow through it like a PVC valve?
I'll tell you something. I don't know. I've never really seen a spec on that, and they don't blow out like a balloon where they just fray. That'd be easy. Right. No, they rupture and they don't enrich. And like kind of what you're saying, you're on part throttle and you need a little enrictment. You're not getting it, so you're playing with the accelerator pump, but your power valve may be shot.
Okay,
Brian has the answer. Well, Brian has the answer for you. You ready? You ready for this? Macro Man Brian, who always has the answers. He's a sage.
He wants me to chuck it through a window, I'm sure.
He says it's time for a sniper, kid. And I will tell you something. Cost aside, because it does cost a few shekels to do this.
Yeah.
Having done this now on my car, everybody asks me, the first thing they ask me is, wow, how hard was that to do? Thursday night.
The first question I asked.
Yeah, Thursday night we talked about it. And I said to the guys, anybody with a modicum of automotive knowledge who knows how to work correctly, who understands some wiring and can read directions, there's the other game changer.
Sure.
Can do this. It's not hard. You got to put some components in, do some wiring. You need a fuel pump. You have to modify the fuel system a little, which in my case, it was easy. It was a drop-in affair. You have to be cognizant of the fact that now you have higher fuel pressure, so your lines need to be in good shape because you're running like 60 pounds, not 6 anymore. So you have to have everything in line. And yes, it's totally attainable by a weekend mechanic. And now that's where my week was. I'm now into the tuning phase where I could drive this thing and let it tune itself the more miles you put on it. But I'm not happy with that.
Because you have a carburetor that has the ability to learn. So,
it does.
You can do that as well.
It does. But I want to go in.
But you're not going to do that. You're going to do this on your own. You're going to adjust it manually?
Well, no, it is learning, because I can see on my handheld device, it'll tell me when it's in learning mode. It's in learning mode as soon as the engine's over 160 degrees. It learns. So it's going to do it whether you want it to or not. But you can go in and you can basically change some of the baseline parameters so that you kind of shift the learning scale a little bit. Like if you need more timing on this particular engine, you can tell it this is the timing where I want it to start. And other things. I'm playing with the IAC. I can literally go in and adjust my IAC and there's a procedure for it. It's pretty cool. Every time you cycle that key, the TPS recycles and the IAC goes to 0. So
the throttle position sensor and the idle air control valve. Yes.
Exactly. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm playing with that. I basically, I key off, and they say turn the what would be like the idle screw a full turn. So I know what's going to happen. Then you start the engine. Whoop, the RPM comes up to like almost 1,500, 2,000. But then looking at the handheld controller, it's like driving your modern car with the scanner attached and reading live data. That's what you're doing. Cool. But unlike just reading live data, now you can change the live data. So once I do that, now I start bringing that idle screw out an eighth to a quarter of a turn at a time. The idle starts to drop, and I'm watching the IAC. And instead of being at like 60% or 40%, I can now see it jump down to 12. And you want to get it where it's in between. Holley says between 0 and 10, but really between like 2 to 6 is ideal. You want to leave it off its pintle a little bit so it has room to adjust. So again, you're changing the parameter, so you can manually go in and do this, and then when you shut the car off, it saves it. So there you go. You saved that parameter. So I
just like hearing that your adjustments are affecting the performance of the engine as you're adjusting it. It annoys me to no end that you start adjusting something and you see no change. Yeah, that always makes me crazy.
Yeah, this is like I just told you before. I feel like I'm living in Joe D's world. I'm thinking about where things are in the computer world of the car now as I'm driving, and you can watch it, so you can see. You can set up your screen to show you. It's like on a scanner where you can select the data that you want to see displayed. It's the same thing with this. You select the gauges that you want to see.
It's funny because, yes, you're looking at something technological, yet you have to think of the physical behavior of an IAC valve, where the pintle has to move in and out of a certain housing,
exactly,
and the gas flowing through it. So you're meshing your technology with a physical act, whatever you want to say,
exactly,
a mechanical, mechanical behavior, mechanical movement.
You're exactly right. Exactly right.
Yeah, that is it's pretty unique when you think about it that way. Because yes, I'm just turning a screw and trying to think mechanically, and with absolutely no technology attached to it.
I think of this all the time as
6. Yeah, yes. That foggy day.
Right.
You were out there turning screws.
Exactly.
So totally get it. But this Holley is a totally different animal. And on the plus side, the car is quicker than it's ever been.
Okay.
It really is. Okay. When you pay attention.
The exhaust might have helped, believe it or not.
Yeah, maybe. But it's also got a very strange idle. Like the idle is very sharp. You know how sometimes...
I know what you mean.
It's like something is out of balance.
Again, let me ask you this, because again, like Mikey T said, the last thing you change, because you changed the exhaust now, you're going to hear your power pulses are now split on 2 banks. They're not merged into one. So you now have a whole different a whole different setup there. So that may be why you're hearing the different. It might be the same idle it had before. You just didn't hear it through dual pipes.
Maybe, but the engine it's like to the point where I want to do a compression check on it just to make sure everything is good. Even to the point where I pulled the valve covers off it this week, and I just checked if all the push rods were still there.
Well, let me ask you this. We talked about this a while ago. Did you ever get around to putting a vacuum gauge on the engine?
Yes.
And what did you see? What's the idle vacuum?
I'm getting 17 and steady.
That's beautiful. That's good.
That's what I'm getting.
Okay.
When it was running sickly, if I drop the idle, the vacuum will drop to between it'll go to like a 16, 14, just bounce back and forth between 16, 14 if I drop the idle. But then the engine it doesn't just smoothly drop. It gets like a chugging.
Right. One thing I seem to remember, it's coming back to me from the past with power valve tuning, where I think it's good to have a vacuum gauge in the car. If the power valve is bad, you'll have horrendous vacuum at that transition between just curb idle and taking off. You'll get a bad vacuum signal if the power valve is bad, and then it'll clear up after that, because now you go off the idle circuit, you're in the power circuit.
Well, I'll go swap it out literally right after the show.
It's good to have a vacuum gauge in the car. It really is. It does
it's
do a
true.
lot of tuning with that.
And I only have, the handheld one, and it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to mount one inside the car.
That's at the swap meets. You can usually pick up. I've picked up a bunch of them. You could get them for like a couple bucks. People don't know. They think you're going to vacuum your floor, so they don't know what to do with it. So, and I pretty much have one in almost every car.
I still think I have a couple of them sitting around, hanging from the rafters in my garage somewhere.
Yeah, probably.
Because I'm starting to do what you do. Just hanging stuff from the rafters of the garage.
Yeah, why
that's
not?
What I'm doing.
Sure.
That's what I'm doing now. Sure. Just take a nail, thunk, up in the rafter, hang it there. Done.
Well, that's good. I'll tell you what. So hanging in the rafters, if you're going to do that today, you can, because we have our bottom of the hour. We have, what the heck? This is the wrong. I
love when my co-host proofreads.
Paper. It's all over. It's the wrong stuff. Rob kind of left this up. We have our WHPC weather, which is we have to do this bottom of the hour. The weather forecast is powered by Pantanos, with locations in Hewlett, Oniondale, Garden City Park, Freeport, and coming soon in Levittown. Today, it's a beautiful day. I mean, there's a car show at the Merrick Fireman's Field at the train station. My reports that came in said, and I passed it coming back from the chiropractor this morning, there's cars in overflow lots, in other train station lots. The place is packed, and that was by before 10 a.m. this morning.
Wow.
They say it was going to be a high of 80. Beautiful. Unlike, maybe we'll say like yesterday, we'll get that weird afternoon thunderstorm that rolled through. Tonight should be partly cloudy skies, low 63, and tomorrow's going to be mostly sunny. It'll be good traveling weather. I hear that where I'm going down to North Carolina, and I hear that it's going to be rainy all week. So that's what
I got. Yeah, 60% chance of rain. It's funny. Just talk real fast about weather and weather that you see on your phone. Have you seen the new weather icon? It's a cloud, right? Because there's weather icons. Yeah. There's a sun. There's a cloud. There's rain. Right? There's all these little weather icons. There's one now where it's a cloud and half sun.
Yeah.
And half rain and half lightning.
That means they don't know what's going on. Yeah.
They don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, anything. It's like this show. Right. It's a mixed bag. And I'll tell you what, other shows on this station are pretty good, too. Here's a great one. Tuesdays at 5 p.m., you want to hear Swing Bop Groove. I wasn't aware of this show, but I'm going to check it out. Modern jazz.
That sounds like any given afternoon in the bathroom.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Modern jazz fans who are open to new directions in the genre and they appreciate the jazz masters that blazed the trail will love our newest jazz show. Woo. Featuring a mix of jazz styles from the 60s through today's emerging artists, which is interesting. Listeners will create a space where serious jazz fans and musicians can find a mutually supportive and spirited community. I think that's cool. I'm going to check it out. So with that in mind, do we have a honored jazz group of the hour?
Oh, yes. My jazzy longtime radio colleague. Of course we do. The Motormouth Radio Honor Group of the Hour. If you have received automotively themed gifts for Father's Day today.
Yoo-hoo.
If your family refrained from giving you the standard Father's Day gifts like neckties or tacky shirts and instead provided you with waxes and cleaners for your vehicle. Or maybe they went out one better, actually gave you the parts you wanted to complete that latest car project you've been working on. Or at least they waved you off, pointing you towards the garage and saying, see you when dinner is served, right? Pat you on the butt, send you on your way. Well, if you got what your car wanted for Father's Day, then you are part of the Motormouth Radio on the Group of the Hour this fine, upstanding Sunday. Yes.
You see, you can't see it on YouTube yet, but I got this shirt years ago.
Yes,
this is the Breaking Bad chemical DA and D. It says the essential element. It's because my daughter thought I was Heisenberg. She thought I was like making meth in the bathroom. I don't know.
And you will see it on the replay. We're hoping.
Yeah. So with that, we'll take our break, and we'll be back with more Motormouth Radio. We'll hear some stuff from friends and family here with on our break, and we'll be back. So let's see. We'll take it out for Tom. Let's see. I know. You know what? We're going to go on a little of the more mellow, cool side. Speaking of Jazzy Jeff over there, we'll do that because this is one of my favorites. I know yours too. And enjoy it. And we'll be back with more Motormouth Radio on 90.3 WHPC.
All right.
You play the cowbell, Chris.
Car not running right? Let the Motormouths help you out at 516-572-7440.
You're listening to the Motormouths.
Hey, Ray and Chris.
Did you guys read my mind?
Okay, I appreciate you having me on.
Wow, you guys finally figured it out. Motormouth! This is great. No more foolishness.
I miss my paisans.
You're a funny guy. I've been waiting for Sunday just to ask you guys this question.
Our trained staff of 2 will help.
Well, good afternoon, guys. I need a little advice.
All right, so you got me to call in. All right.
I don't know everything. You know, you guys are mechanics.
You guys have a great show. Thank you very much. I come with a tale of woe and a warning for the younger guys.
Chris is doing jumping jacks. He's getting ready. Ray is right behind me.
Every time I get off the air, I think,
Motormouth!
Oh, boy, they're never going to ask me back after that one.
Yeah, this is a collect call. How are you?
Quite frankly, there are better things to do with your time.
Oh, I probably called the wrong number. I was trying to get a hold of Ray. And I wake up screaming.
So I'm very happy to listen to your good advice.
Yeah, I want to know what is wrong with my car.
You know, break it down for us car guys.
All right, see you next weekend.
Motormouth!
I know you guys usually speak Guido, and now you're talking Pinkel and Yiddish, and this morning I happened to listen to the rabbi on your station. So it's all, I guess today's Yiddish then.
Right.
There are answers, sometimes correct ones, and we may have them.
Motormouth Radio, 90.3 FM, WHPC.
Motormouth!
This show on 90.3 WHPC is brought to you by CarStar Celebrity Chase Collision, with 2 locations in Limerick and Oceanside, who remind you that New York state law says you always have the right to choose which shop will fix your car. CarStar Celebrity Chase Collision offers a full range of services, 24-hour towing between Montauk and Manhattan, shuttle service, and they can help you with a rental car arrangement if needed. All repairs include the CarStar Lifetime Nationwide Warranty, ensuring that the experts at Celebrity Chase Collision are always on your side.
Y sí, hablamos español.
More information is available at 516-593-0920 or online at celebritychasecollision.com.
Hey, you, get over here. Every Sunday, 12 to 1, you are going to tune in to hear the Motormouths, my friends Ray Guarino and Chris Switzer. 90.3 FM, WHPC. You might learn something.
I hope you learn how to play a good marimba or cowbell. Right?
That is...
Because you're grooving.
I love that too. That is Malo.
Malo. Right.
Malo. And Malo is the cousin of Carlos Santana.
It's, you know what? I remember growing up, I remember thinking that was Santana. Because it really does sound a lot like Santana, without a doubt.
Totally.
Without a doubt.
Very true. 516-572-7440 on this lovely Father's Day 2023.
Yeah, give us a call.
Yeah. a lot of fun. We're talking carburetors and snipers, and Brian is exactly right. I think we're going to fuel inject this thing. And I'll tell you the truth, I'm also hitting another wall of bad news with this car. Because I'm starting to see a little blue puffing out of the back of this thing, out of the tailpipe.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm thinking we're going to be looking at valve seals very soon. So that's going to be my next malady, because that's why I want to do a compression check. I want to make sure that it's not the rings.
Okay, we're going to check this compression. We're going to go to the phones and say, hi, caller, you're on with the Motor Mouths.
Hey, guys.
Hey,
Ray
Steve.
And Chris. Steve from West Hempstead. Happy Father's Day.
Steve, I know. All I got to do is play certain songs, and you're going to call.
Oh, my God, man. The music is off the wall, man. Going nuts here.
You like Suavecito, huh?
Oh, yeah. One of my favorites.
Excellent. Yes, good stuff.
A lot of your musical selections are just fantastic, man.
Well, yeah, we you know what? It's all just stream of consciousness. It's kind of what, try and see what's going on that week, try and tie it into a topic or a guest or whatever. Sometimes, like this week, it was just, hey, what's going to be cool for Father's Day? So.
Right.
Well, don't get me wrong. I'm enjoying the crash course on Holley carburetor diagnosis also, you know?
And opinions on such carburetors, right, Steve?
Yeah, I know, Chris, you're ready to throw it out the garage and down the street and run over it with a steamroller, but that's another story.
It's funny because one side of me says this thing is a piece of junk, and the other side of me says I have to make it right. Like I have to figure out why it's a piece of junk and how to actually make it work. And that's why it's on a car that's a piece of junk too. So,
but you always have to remember that at some point you may be working with a flawed component. And I know Brian's talked about it. Other people have too. It's a good, and Christian was talking about it, to check, spray around those throttle shafts and make sure they're not sucking vacuum and that the car isn't, and probably not because you have a good 16 pounds at idle, but they're known for that. Guys put on like a door closer spring on the thing, and and it just, it'll actually tension the throttle shaft and wear out the bushing. So just something to, while you're in there with some cleaner.
All right, guys, we'll tie up the phone line. Just wanted to wish you guys a happy Father's Day, and thanks for the information on automobiles and musically.
You got it, Steve.
Have a great day.
Yeah.
Okay, bye-bye.
Hey, Steve, always a pleasure.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Steve from West Hempstead. Yes, I can. You can sense when some people are going to call, and I said, "Yeah, Steve will be calling."
Just on the musical selections alone, which are very good. Are very good. I have to admit, it's a fine choice.
Hey, you go to Infinity Records and you get good CDs. You get good choices. What can I tell you? Go see the boys down here in Massapequa. They're a fine bunch. Get great music. I was listening to a Southern Hillman Fury band last night, an album that I bought from 74. Oh, wow. My younger daughter and I were playing some darts, and I said, hey, we're going to listen to something from 1974 right now, and threw on an old Southern Hillman Fury.
And she went, Dad, why do we have to listen to such old stuff?
No, you know what? She's a new country fan of the modern genre of country, whereas I'm more of a truck driving country lover. But there's a lot of stuff.
You're more Western than country.
Well, we have both kinds, Chris, country and Western.
It's so funny about country music. There was a span of time, and I actually worked at a country radio station, so I have a little bit of knowledge here. But I always found that just like jazz, country music can't be told, you can't listen to it and know what era it came from, a lot of it. The new stuff you can, because it almost sounds more rock and roll like than country. But the older stuff, like anything from like 1990 on back to 1955, sometimes you can't picture where it came from in the era.
I guess unless you know the artists, because then you know, like, well, Patsy Cline wasn't doing this in the 90s,
Well, of course. No, those, yes, you're absolutely right about that. It's like jazz is the same way. I could listen to jazz and go, well, when was this done? In the 60s?
Very true. Knows? Ask Greg Bigelow about that, or a jazz aficionado here at the station. He'll tell you.
But you listen to music, you listen to rock and roll, or you listen to popular music, you kind of know what era it came from because it constantly changes and constantly morphs. and redefines itself. Where jazz or country music now, I think, but that's just my opinion. That's all. This is
anyway,
still a car.
She does like the newer stuff, and when I put on this older album, she did kind of like it because it had the shades of the newer. Well, it was like that. Those guys were kind of like it wasn't outlaw country, and it wasn't. It wasn't Candyland country. It was mellow kind of. They were just country artists that were doing a little bit of their kind of like soft rock thing. So anyway,
it was like yacht country.
I guess you know what? I guess you could say that. Yeah,
it's like I've never heard it said this way. Yacht rock.
Oh, yacht rock is very popular.
Yacht rock.
Yeah.
Like what in the world is that?
Yeah. There's CDs, there's albums put out on yacht rock. Yeah. There's yes. Let's not go there because that's not my genre. So anyway, yeah. Back to tuning and carburation and fuel injection. It's it can be a daunting task, and like I said, at some point you may have to think that the hardware may need That's why a lot of guys will swap out that carburetor. Let me take the other one that I have. But the problem is when the carburetor sits, it's not the best thing for it unless it was. And you say prepared, but how is it prepared? I'll tell you. When I'm driving my Fiat today, and I had that car came with a dual throat Weber, and let me remember correctly, I think it was 29 and 32 millimeter, the two bores. It was like a little bit of a spread bore. And that was for fuel economy and performance or whatever. And so I had put on a dual, I forget if it was a dual 34 or a dual 36. That was the performance carburetor. And then a couple of years ago, I got a little tired. I said, you know what, the other one had a little bit more snappy performance on the bottom end, and I had it in the shed on the original manifold, and I know when I stored it, I had drained it, and I said, I'm probably going to have to rebuild this. But you know what, let me put it on a car, and I took it apart and looked at it and said, wow, it's really clean, and everything looks good. And I put it on the car, and it runs. I'm running it now. So I did get away with it. It worked for me. It doesn't always work that way, though.
This carburetor that I'm dealing with is constantly dirty. Does that make sense? Like, it really does need to be boiled.
Yeah.
It needs to be put through one of your...
It needs to go into my ultrasonic cleaner, yeah.
Your boilator.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like now, when I go back out there later this afternoon, I have a list of things that I want to also treat to the car, like the nozzle. Now, the nozzle works.
What nozzle are you talking about?
The spray nozzle.
Okay,
right? Up on top.
Okay.
So that works, but I don't know. It's like it's tough getting up there and actually get the ability to look down into the carburetor. This car is so big that
I know. That's the discharge nozzle.
With the Fiat, you can lean over and see the spray.
You can test that when you have it on the bench.
Yeah,
because if you can put some carburetor cleaner in the bowl. And then what you do is when you work the throttle, the accelerator pump pushes the fluid up through channels in the body and then through those transfer, through the discharge nozzles. So you can do that on the bench just as well as on the car and see if there's a clog or anything.
Here's the thing. I'm noticing a little bit of dripping, but unfortunately, the way I have to situate myself to actually visually see down there is precarious, especially when the car's running. Because I got a foot sticking out, I got one knee on the fender.
No, I got you.
It's tough.
You know what you
really
need?
Is. What? A new car.
You need to go buy yourself at a swap meet an old Dodge or Plymouth Cross Ram intake, so it'll put a Holley on right by either fender, and then you'll be able to see it easy because you just look right over.
Yeah, for about $1,200.
Probably more. I think the air cleaner might cost you that much.
Probably, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
So I'm fully aware that I've tipped the apple cart on this thing, and now I'm paying the price. But it's also the blue smoke now is not helping the situation any. So we're going to have to figure that out. And that's the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a compression check just to make sure we're all good here. And then from there, I'm going to take it and run with it. But I just basically...
The other tool, I was talking to my friend Kilowatt Kevin about this yesterday. He was working on his son's Monte Carlo. I talked about this last year, maybe 2 years ago. He had a problem where he had a noise in the engine, and they scoped the cylinders and found some scratching on the top of a piston. Ooh. So it came this far, and yesterday he pulled the head off. And we saw that mark, but we didn't really see anything that might have caused it. So he was talking about diagnosing it further and if there was head damage or whatever. And I said, a compression test is one thing, but the leak down test is the next best test, which actually pressurizes the cylinder with air. And then with the valves closed, you have two gauges. One shows you, testing pressure, and the other shows you cylinder pressure, and you watch that cylinder pressure, and if it starts to drop, it's leaking down. Right. And this is how I diagnose problems on my Riviera and Monte Carlo. You have the carburetor wide open so that air can come in or whatever. And if you hear air rushing out of the carburetor, you have an intake valve leaking. If you hear it coming out of a tailpipe, you have an exhaust valve. Sure. And with the dual exhaust, you can now know which bank that exhaust valve is leaking on. And if you can open the radiator cap, and if you see bubbles, you got a leak into a cylinder head. Head gasket. So that's the next specific test that I like to do.
Let me ask you a question. I've read both, and I'm wondering which is better. One of them says in the compression test to just pull one spark plug if you're doing the compression test on that cylinder. The others say pull them all and do each cylinder. What do you recommend?
Oh yeah, every cylinder. You got to do it. You got to do and you got to do them all at least 3 or 4 times.
But you pull all the spark plugs, or do you pull the spark plug that you're doing?
Oh, you can pull them all because they better not be connected.
I know I'm finding that odd. It's like, why?
Plus, it makes it easier for the engine to turn if the spark plugs are out.
Good. Okay.
You're really testing the pressure in that cylinder. So with the compression tester in that cylinder, the others, unless there's a crack in the wall, the others don't matter.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. If you're isolating one cylinder, what do the other plugs have to do with it?
Right. No, you take them all out.
Right.
And then lock the carburetor wide open so you have air coming in. Disconnect the ignition, of course. And then and keep the battery. I put a battery charger on it. Keep that battery at a nice high level so you get a nice healthy cranking. Right.
I actually have a backup battery as well.
And usually what you do is you would I like to use the starter button if you can connect it to your starter. Well, you could do it with the relay, the starter relay on top.
You know what it actually is nice about the Chrysler is that the ignition switch is on the other side of the dash.
Right.
It's on your Pontiac side.
Right.
We have ignition switches. Both of us have ignition switches on the left-hand side of the dash.
Which I'll tell you why it's such a pain in the ass for me these days.
Why?
Because in the garage, I have the car pulled in, so I get in through the passenger side, and I'm doing sniper tuning. I have to reach across to the left freaking side. I'm like, why couldn't I have a Chevelle? Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. This is one time I drive into the garage instead of backing into the garage because I would much rather back my vehicles into the garage than drive them.
Right.
It's what we've always talked about. You back your car up into the driveway.
Right.
You don't drive into the driveway. You back up into it.
Yep.
You drive out. So that's what I want to do with the Chrysler. But unfortunately, I can't do that with this car. I got to nose it in.
So
that puts the ignition switch on the right spot.
Also, compression test, for those who don't know, should be done. You should have that motor up at operating temperature first, fully warmed up. And then, like I said, carburetor locked, fully open, ignition disabled, pull the plugs. And when you're using that starter button, with the gauge attached, usually as you're cranking it, you'll hear it'll be the engine. Well, yours will be making that god-awful Chrysler. Yeah, that's the one. But as it's doing that, you'll also hear the compression gauge give you like a... as the needle goes up, you'll hear it go, and usually after like 3 of those, it usually stops at, let's say, 125 pounds, whatever.
Right.
Okay, record that. Then what you do is you bleed it off. There's a bleed valve on a decent compression. Hey, I got a Matco compression tester that's for sale, and it's a U.S. made Matco one. This is not a plug for Brian. This is my personal gauge that I'm trying to sell. I wanted to send it to him to have him sell it on the truck, but he said he's not in that business. So you let the pressure down, then crank it again. Let it go to its highest point, and you'll record that. Do that 3 times. And those numbers should all be very close to each other. And then you go to the next cylinder. And what you look for is a disparity between cylinders. And there is a standard number that they recommend. I think they want all cylinders within 80% of each other, but...
Right. It's literally 10 to 15% variation.
Yeah.
But 20 is, hey, with this car, I'll go with that too. It doesn't matter. But when, it's funny because you mentioned doing it warm. That's kind of a bummer because the way the Chrysler's set up, the plugs are under the exhaust manifold.
Right.
Boy, does it get hot down there.
I know.
Holy smokes. It gets hot. And getting those plugs out is a chore.
I know. But, I'll tell you what, even if you were to... Yeah, the cast iron manifolds retain heat for a while. Even if you were to warm the car up and then let it sit for, an hour, it's still going to be at operating... In the summer, it's going to be at operating temperature.
Right.
So, the reason they do that is because they want everything to expand in its natural, with its natural heat signature. The cylinders, the heads, the rings. They want everything sealed. And then, the other thing, you can read up on compression tests. There's a lot of information. Go to a motor's manual. That's good stuff. If you see a low cylinder, one that you say you're seeing like 100 to 125 on your cylinders, and you see one that's like 80 or 70, you squirt a little oil in that cylinder. And then run the test again. And if the number comes up, the feeling is, the rings aren't seating and you're helping to seal them off. So you want to look for kind of a pattern through the whole engine, not necessarily just focus on the individual cylinder numbers. As long as they're all around the same, like if they were all around, if the book called for 125 or 135, and you saw all your cylinders were at like 95, I wouldn't condemn that engine. I'd say, okay, maybe they're all worn, but they're all worn in the same amount. So you're not going to get an offset or a roughness. Mm-hmm. If they're all around 60, now you may have a problem. So yeah, exactly.
But it's that and this oil burning issue, which is starting to concern me.
That's what I found out. I found this out early in the week. The problem I had was with my car where it would start, run, and I'd watch all of a sudden the idle would go up, the IAC would open, and then it would just drop and close. And so it'd be like running, and then go, bleh, and then recover, and then and I'm thinking...
It was hunting,
but hunting to the extreme, not just like a this was and then it would do it. It would take another couple minutes for it to It was so I'm like, what the heck? That night again, of course, I go in the house. I'm thinking about it. I'm like, it's almost like all of a sudden there was a giant vacuum leak, and it's affecting the IAC. And I'm thinking, the PCV is a controlled vacuum leak.
Yes.
And in my car,
it is.
I have a PCV valve that I think might be out of a Toyota. And the reason is the Pontiac engines have a valley pan under the intake. And it's stamped steel. It's a 2-part affair. And when I was rebuilding the engine, I found a high-performance Pontiac place that made that pan out of cast aluminum. So it was really kind of cool looking. And I bought it. I got it in the car. But what they gave you, they were building race engines, so they didn't have PCVs. They gave you a boss on there that you could drill and tap, which I did. So I said, great, now I can drill and tap it, but what PCV valve has threads on it? Well, believe it or not, I went through my stash. In the 60s, Chevy, the 283 with a 2-barrel, had a threaded PCV valve that went into the back of the 2-barrel. I have one. So I want to find a more modern valve, and I think I found one out of a Toyota that had threads. So I had that set up in the car, and I'm thinking, maybe it's that PCV. Maybe it's unloading and just dumping. So I went out, and I pulled it off the back of the throttle body, capped the throttle body, and now capped the PCV. You know what? And I also took my vacuum gauge out of the back of the throttle body and ran it right to the intake manifold. So there's nothing pulling vacuum off the throttle body. That problem pretty much stopped.
No way.
It was a controlled vacuum leak. So that PCV I know is not the right spec. There is a company that makes an adjustable PCV valve.
Son of a gun. I never heard of that.
Unfortunately, it costs about $1.25. But you can adjust it for low speed and for cruise. So when I get back into it, I may. So I'm running right now without a PCV valve. But
I'm thinking, what would stop you from putting a rubber grommet in where the threads are, and you can really press any PCV
the rubber grommet usually goes into like a stamped steel valve cover where it's thin. This is cast aluminum. It's got a thickness to it. It's got a thickness to it. It's maybe, I don't think it's a 1/4 inch thick. It's probably at least 3/16.
Because I'm thinking there's got to be a rubber grommet that would do the job.
I don't know.
That would fill that hole.
And the problem is that position is in the back of the engine. It's low. It's hard to get at when it's in the car. It really is. Right. It's not an easy place. So for now, I just disconnected. I said, you know what? Let's take that out of the equation and we'll work from there. So
it's awesome. Problem solved.
Well, I'll tell you what else is solved. This problem of this show, because we're done now. And stay tuned, of course, for Kim and Thunder Road, because
we can go back to good programming. Right?
So we won't be in next week. Both of us will be out. We'll be down south. But we'll play a replay show, and we'll be back in 2 weeks. Maybe we'll have a guest. We'll see. So what do we tell the people waiting out in the parking lot for me, Chris?
Don't follow us home unless you have an adjustable PCV valve for Ray.
And then I'll talk to you. You got that right. All right, Chris, see you in 2 weeks.
Yes. Have a good, safe trip, and enjoy your Father's Day. Too. And see you, bye.
Right, on 90.3 WHPC, Motor Mouth Radio out. See you guys. Bye.